Israel Adesanya versus Paulo Costa takes place this weekend in the main event of UFC 253, Adesanya versus Costa, and I can't wait for this fight. In my opinion, this single fight is carrying the entire card this weekend, because as much as it's a great card, it's not the best card in the world overall in terms of how stacked it is throughout the prelims and the early prelims. I like this main event. It carries the entire card. Adesanya versus Costa is amazing. I hope that we don't lose this main event, because Paulo Costa is Brazilian, and it seems like nowadays Brazilians and the coronavirus seem to go together like Woodley and losing all 5 rounds of a main event. I'm looking forward to this one. Please, MMA gods, do not ruin this entire card by taking it away from us. I hope I haven't just jinxed that, but let's get into the prediction. I'm going to be going with Paulo Costa by second round TKO. In fact, I might change that throughout this video. Stay tuned to find out, because I'm thinking maybe he does it in the first round at the end of it instead. I feel as though Paulo Costa is going to put his chin down, walk down Israel Adesanya, put him against a cage, give him little space to work with, and just make it an absolute messy slugfest and beat Adesanya to the punch in close range and KO him in the first round. I feel like Paulo Costa's going to get the job done, because I've seen Israel Adesanya, as much as people seem to say that Adesanya is this undefeated phenom, which he is. He's had some rounds and some fights where things seem to be a little bit tricky, and I'm noticing a theme in all of those fighters, and I think that Paulo Costa is a better version than all of those fighters at what they do best. Listen to these names. Israel Adesanya has had a great run since joining the UFC. He's beat a ton of top guys, including names like Brad Tavares, Marvin Vettori, Kelvin Gastelum, Yoel Romero. What do you know? All of those fighters are his toughest fights in the UFC so far. Yoel Romero won 2 rounds against him and could have maybe won the second, but I gave it to Adesanya because he landed a few more strikes. So that fight goes to Adesanya very well indeed. Kelvin Gastelum won 2 rounds against him. Are we noticing anything here? Hunched over guys, put their chin down, try and land a big punch. They seem to do quite well against Adesanya compared to fighters like Robert Whittaker, Derek Brunson, who sort of played on the outside for a little bit, but Derek Brunson I don't even think we can even mention in this. Robert Whittaker played around on the outside, lunged forward against Adesanya, used a little bit of footwork, and I feel like when you're doing that, you're playing Israel Adesanya's game. I don't even know why I brought up Derek Brunson's name, because I'll be honest with you guys, I've watched that Derek Brunson fight again. He literally just sprinted chin first. It's like there was a magnet in Israel Adesanya's belt buckle or something. I don't even know if they don't have a belt buckle, but I feel there was a magnet, maybe. Maybe there was a magnet in Derek Brunson's chin, and it was for some reason being drawn towards Israel Adesanya's cup, because all he did that entire fight was sprint his face into Israel Adesanya's groin over and over and over again, and I don't understand why he did it whatsoever, but still, Robert Whittaker tried to play the pitter-patter on the outside kind of game and failed because of it, but then again, Robert Whittaker was landing a lot of punches in that fight. In fact, there were moments in that fight where Robert Whittaker was ahead on strikes against Israel Adesanya before getting caught at the end of the first round, which spelled the end for Robert Whittaker, and he got KO'd in the second. I feel as though Paulo Costa has got too good of a chin. He's not going to get KO'd by Israel Adesanya, because guess what? Gastelum didn't get KO'd by Adesanya. And I know it was close, and he probably would have got KO'd if it went to a 5th round. But in those first 2 rounds, Gastelum had the chin to survive Israel Adesanya. Paulo Costa has the chin to survive the biggest shots of Yoel Romero's career directly on his chin, while Romero's playing a game pointing off to the side and then catches him with a right hand and he bounces right back up. Paulo Costa's got an incredible chin. I think if Gastelum can take them for 2 rounds and Tavares can take them for 2 rounds, we've seen Tavares KO'd many a time, and I know Israel Adesanya comes out there and says, it was a 5-rounder. I wanted to go 5 rounds. I understand that, Adesanya. I really do. But you weren't trying to go 5 rounds with Brad Tavares. You were trying to KO him with every single thing you threw. You don't throw knees up the middle as your opponent is rushing towards you to score a point. You just don't throw knees to the face, period, if you're trying to score a point. You can fire leg kicks away all day and maybe a couple of jabs if you want to go 5 rounds. Who knows? You don't do what you did against Tavares. You know what I saw in a Tavares fight? I saw a tough guy who's a grinder that puts the pressure on guys, stick his chin down, survive Adesanya, get beaten up, by the way. Adesanya won that fight very clearly and very well, and it was an amazing performance. In fact, one of Adesanya's best performances. Even though he got the big win against Derek Brunson, the way he handled Tavares was very good, but what I'm saying is Tavares can survive. And I think if Paulo Costa can survive those first 2 rounds, which I guarantee you he can, there will be not a chance for Adesanya to escape those first 2 rounds. I think Paulo Costa is going to go out there, and I'm going to change my prediction from an early second round prediction to a late first round. I think Paulo Costa is going to go out there and TKO Adesanya in the first round. I really do. And I don't care what anyone says. I think Paulo Costa is going to go out there and do it, because I've watched a lot of Adesanya fights, man. They're not that dominant at times, and if Kelvin Gastelum is catching you on the chin, and Paulo Costa can too, and when Paulo Costa does it, it's going to be a completely different story, because Kelvin Gastelum has only KO'd fighters past their prime, and only beaten fighters past their prime throughout his entire career. And that's not a joke. That's all he's done his entire career. And you look at the Anderson Silva fight. That was close. You know what I think would happen if Anderson Silva took on Paulo Costa? I think Paulo Costa would walk right through him and destroy him, much like Jared Cannonier did. I think that's what would happen. I don't for a second believe that Paulo Costa would lose the second round to Anderson Silva in a striking match. I don't think that would happen whatsoever. I think Paulo Costa is too big. I just saw a face-off between them in the hotel lobby, where they seem very friendly, by the way, which actually benefits Costa in my opinion, because I thought a great way that Adesanya had a chance to win was if he were to get in the head of Paulo Costa with a bit of trash talking, and maybe have Paulo Costa headhunting against him. But I think Paulo Costa is going to be looking for body kicks, body shots, the entire fight long until the end of the first round, when he'll start unloading with combinations to the head as well, after softening up Adesanya with leg kicks and body kicks, which are some of the best in the game. If you have not seen Paulo Costa's body kicks by now, then you have not lived. They are some of the nicest body kicks I've ever seen, some of the nicest switch kicks to the body in MMA I've seen, especially in terms of a middleweight division and upwards, those big boys. It's hard to land kicks to the body at that weight class because they're so telegraphed, and fighters seem to see him coming. And Paulo Costa does it so well against so many people. Now, I know that Paulo Costa had a razor-close fight with Yoel Romero. So did Adesanya. I would rather Paulo Costa's style. I'll be honest with you guys. Both guys had a razor-close fight with Romero. And other than that, Paulo Costa, I agree with you guys, has not fought too many amazing fighters. He really hasn't, but you know what he has beaten? Oluwale Bangbos, and he makes them look so easy. Johnny Hendricks, I guess, is not the correct name to bring up right now because of how Johnny Hendricks is recently. You know, those cholesterol levels are rising by the day. That's a fact. And Uriah Hall even. Paulo Costa, other than taking some jabs on the face, was jabbing right back with Uriah Hall. And I'll tell you this, Israel Adesanya is not Uriah Hall. He's not going to stand there and piston off jabs. He's not that kind of fighter. He's going to look back. He's going to try and find awkward angles. He's going to be darting around the outside of the cage. And I don't think you can play that game plan with Paulo Costa because he's just too dangerous coming forward. He's a wrecking machine. And when I saw the face-off between him and Adesanya, Paulo Costa is huge, man. Okay, he's really big, and I thought Israel Adesanya was going to have a little bit of height on him. I didn't see that whatsoever. I saw a big guy in Paulo Costa, which could have well been the same height as Adesanya in that video. Okay, I know the angles are a little bit deceptive, but he is a huge guy for that division, and that is something that we have to take into consideration. We take that into consideration whenever we look at a fight with Kamaru Usman. He's a huge guy, and so is Paulo Costa. You can do some things in there. You can be the bully, and I don't even think he needs to go out there and jab with Adesanya or play the range game. I think he could go out there, get the clinch, go for a takedown, which is something that's going to be huge here. Training with Henry Cejudo's coach, you don't think a takedown has ever been mentioned as part of a plan for this fight, then you don't know what's going on in their training camp. I think Paulo Costa's going to implement some takedowns. He's going to make Adesanya think for the first 4 minutes of the fight, and then he's going to go all out now that he's implemented all of his plans with the body kicks, with the leg kicks, with the jabs as well, which he's going to land because, listen, Kelvin Gastelum was landing jabs over and over and over again on Israel Adesanya despite having a massive reach disadvantage. Kelvin Gastelum went out there and was jabbing up Israel Adesanya's face in that fight, okay? Don't get head kicked by Kelvin Gastelum if you're a world-class striker, Israel Adesanya. I feel there's going to be some holes, and I think Paulo Costa's going to bring the pain, land some good body shots, land some good leg kicks, throw in a couple takedowns that aren't going to be worth much because Adesanya will probably scramble out of them, but the thought of a takedown and the threat of one will be there, and I don't think Adesanya's going to be able to just keep at bay and leg kick Paulo Costa for the first 2 rounds. I think Costa's going to go out there and whoop him. I really do. I did not like the gun-shy Adesanya that I saw against Yoel Romero. I really didn't, because you listen here. If Adesanya told us he was going to go out there and make it a stalemate, Fair play, I would respect it. He said he was going to go out there and be the first guy to finish Yoel Romero. Could this be a whole big game? Maybe. Maybe he was trying to trick Romero, but go after him if he's sitting there. Like, I know a lot of people put the blame on Yoel Romero in that fight, but in my opinion, Yoel Romero thought he won. People don't get that in that fight, and I don't know why people still can't understand that. Yoel Romero won the first round. He won the 5th round. He might have thought he won the 2nd round because he rocked Adesanya against a cage in the 2nd round and had a big moment, and Adesanya didn't do too much back to him. He might have thought he won that fight, and people disgrace him for standing still in the 3rd and 4th round when he was planning on coming back in the 5th and winning the fight for himself. Now, did Israel Adesanya win the 2nd round? Yes. I just don't see it happening for Israel Adesanya, man. I really don't see it happening. Paulo Costa is a huge boy, 6'1". I think he's close to 6'2" as well. 72-inch reach as well, and Adesanya, of course, is going to have a massive reach advantage of 80 inches, but we've seen Adesanya with huge reach advantages over people and getting his face jabbed off by Kelvin Gastelum. I mean, what is Kelvin Gastelum's reach? Let me just check real quick. 71.5. Less than Paulo Costa's. I think he's going to go out there and catch Adesanya too much. Be a little bit too tough. Be a little bit too big. Bully him around, because I think that Adesanya is a little bit bullyable. And I think that this matchup is great for him. Because people who have come forward have done better against Adesanya than people who have tried to play the range game and make it a real technical match. The brawl favours Costa. I think he's going to go out there and win. I'm actually so bulletproof about this. I've never been more bulletproof in my life, so maybe take this into consideration here. I don't see Adesanya winning. One way I do see Adesanya winning, and we'll talk about this as well, much like we talk about how people could win even when we aren't predicting them. I think Adesanya's best chance to win is to finish this later on. I don't see this being a decision, and if it is a decision, kind of shame on you, Adesanya, in my opinion. I think he's probably going to finish Paulo Costa. If he does win in the 4th or 5th round, I think that's very agreeable among all sides of the argument. If Adesanya were to win, he would do it in the 4th or 5th round. I don't think he's going to get to it, and I don't think with the mindset of going out there to win in the 4th and 5th round is going to be safe for him to survive Paulo Costa in the 1st and 2nd. When you're going out there and you know your chance is right, I've just got to weather the storm. I don't want that. I want you to go out there and say, you know what, I'm going to beat Paulo Costa in the 1st and 2nd round. Adesanya's mindset going into this one is, right, if I get past the 1st and 2nd, I'm going to start to pick this guy apart. With that kind of mindset, he's going to be a little bit too defensively aware, and sometimes that can make him a little bit hesitant, and I think he's going to get cracked on the chin, much like Anderson Silva did to him. Anderson Silva was cracking him on the chin, and Adesanya did not dominate him. And Anderson Silva was playing around with his dumb hand movements because he likes losing fights. I don't understand why, but he just likes losing fights nowadays, and I don't get it. But I just feel as though Paulo Costa goes out there and wins. After watching all of their fights, I don't see a scenario where Adesanya beats him. I really don't, and I could look like a fool right now looking back in time. I really could. But there has not been a real underdog win in a very long time in MMA, and I'm thinking it's due, because you look at these schedules recently, the favourites have been coming up big. I like my chances with Paulo Costa as an underdog. I think Paulo Costa should be dead even in odds with Israel Adesanya out of respect to Adesanya being a champion and having a bit of a better record against some better names. The fact that he's such a big underdog is a disgrace, and every single time we see this, when a guy is completely disrespected by the odds, other than against Khamzat Chimaev, every time we see this, things seem to happen. I'm going to go with Paulo Costa. I think he's going to get the job done. Adesanya's 6'3" upon remeasurement. Not 6'4", 6'3" upon remeasurement. I'm going to be going with Paulo Costa getting it done, man. I just don't see a scenario where it doesn't happen. I really don't. He's going to crack Adesanya. So here's how I see the fight going. Paulo Costa comes out there, chops at the legs a couple of times, real hard, and even if Adesanya checks him, he's probably going to chop right through to the rear one as well. Get in Adesanya's face, push him against the cage, clinch with him, because that's something that we haven't seen Adesanya encounter in the cage yet. Clinch work against the cage that Paulo Costa can employ as a huge guy in a division that's very strong in a clinch and very short arms as well, which is very good in a clinch because you can sneak things in close range that Adesanya can't with his long arms trying to tuck him in. I'm going with Paulo Costa. I think he pushes him to the cage, beats him in the clinch, and just gets a hold of him. It's not going to be about, can Costa cut off the footwork? Can Costa cut off the cage and make Adesanya trapped against the cage? It's going to be what happens when Costa grabs him and engages in the clinch and gets double underhooks and runs with Adesanya towards the cage. Because that's exactly what he needs to do. And it would be alarming to me if he didn't do just that. I think Costa's going to grab him, push him to the cage, unload with body shots, and some leg kicks, and some body kicks as well. Then eventually he's going to push Adesanya to the cage at the end of the first round, unload with some body shots, catch Adesanya fading away upstairs, because I'll tell you this, Adesanya has a problem with running into the cage at times. We see it quite a bit. We saw it with Kelvin Gastelum. We saw it with Israel Adesanya. We saw it with Yoel Romero as well in the second round when Romero caught him. Adesanya's in a ring mindset. And he's been that way for a while, and it's something that I've noticed. So I think if Costa gets him to the cage with the clinch, he'll beat him. Because Adesanya's thinking of the ring. He thinks he can play rope-a-dope in those situations. The cage is a different story, and we've seen him in trouble when he gets there multiple times in his career. I'm going with Paulo Costa. Alright? That's who I'm going with. TKO, first round. I genuinely don't care. That's exactly how I see the fight going. I think he beats him, and I think people are absolutely delusional counting him out. Why are you counting out Paulo Costa? He's one of the most skilled fighters on the roster. That rhymes. How can it not be true? Doesn't make any sense. People calling him a bodybuilder. People saying he has no technique. He's just a big guy. Oh, the size. I know I mentioned the size, but you've got to mention the other things along with it. Great body kicks. Great combinations. He never lets his hands fall away from his chin when he throws combinations. And I think he's going to beat Adesanya to the close range engagements and KO him in the first round. And I'm done with the video. Honestly, that took a lot out of me. I just feel like no one's seeing this. No one is watching the Costa I'm watching, and I think he's going to go out there and beat Adesanya with ease. No one's watching the Costa I'm watching. People are like seeing something completely different. I don't know if it's jealousy. I don't know if it's envy of him, which is the same thing as jealousy, so I don't know why I put both of them together in a list. They're the same thing. But people are disregarding him. But he's so good. He's going to beat Adesanya. Yeah, I see it happening. Look back at the previous events. Covington beat Woodley, the favourite. Angela Hill beat Michelle Waterson, rounds 1, 2, and 5, the favourite. Overeem beat Sakai, the favourite. Smith versus Rakic, Rakic won, the favourite. Munoz versus Edgar. Munoz won rounds 1, 3, 4, and 5 against Frankie Edgar, the favourite. I'm going to go with Paulo Costa. I see it as the time is nigh. I don't know how people aren't noticing this. And it's nothing to do with the schedule. I'm just bringing this up right now at the end. I've never been this emotional. And you could say that I'm making an emotional prediction, but I fucking believe it, man. I've been watching these guys for a while. I fucking believe this, man. And don't get me wrong, Adesanya could catch him. You could catch him with a knee up the middle. That's the only way I see this happening Adesanya's way in the first 2 rounds. I just don't see it that way. I see Costa eating everything Adesanya has, smiling at him, grabbing him, pushing him to the cage, and ripping to the body, finishing upstairs. Adesanya out cold in the first round, because guess what? He's already been KO'd multiple times in his career. Once that we know of. In a kickboxing career, there's a lot you don't know of. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Goodbye. Paulo Costa round 1 KO. Like it's nothing. Like it's nothing. Goodbye. Imagine if it does. Imagine if Adesanya Derek Brunson's him in the first round. That'd be crazy. But still, I'm putting my neck on the line. I really don't give a fuck. This. I'll put my credibility on the line here. I've rambled for 18 minutes. He's gonna win. He's gonna win. I've got my money on him. He's gonna win. First round KO. Goodbye.